Welcome to the deep dive. We've got, a pretty fascinating report to dig into today.
Yeah.
You sent this over to us, and well, honestly, it's this report on the global shoulder replacement market is just packed with information. We're looking at the market size, where it's headed, over the next 10 years, the growth rate broken down by region, and the various factors that are kind of shaping this whole industry. So
It's a really comprehensive report.
it is.
And there's just so much to unpack.
Yeah.
For our listeners today, we really wanted to go beyond just the numbers and kind of highlight what we see as some of the key takeaways, projections, trends. By the end of this, you should have a much clearer understanding of the present and the future of the global shoulder replacement market.
Yeah, to give you a quick snapshot, this report forecasts a global market size of $472.54 million for shoulder replacements in 2025. But here's where it gets really interesting. They predict a big jump to $914.27 million by 2033.
Okay.
That's a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 8.6% between 2025 and 2033.
That's huge.
Yeah, and what's really driving this growth, think about it. A global population that's living longer and, maybe not so surprisingly, more sports injuries.
Yeah, those are significant demographic and lifestyle shifts that, directly correlate with the need for these types of procedures.
Right.
So it's a pretty logical connection.
Okay, well, let's unpack this, in a structured way. We'll start by kind of painting the overall global picture, then we'll zoom in on specific regions around the world, and finally we'll look at the different types of shoulder replacement procedures and who's really doing them, end users like the hospitals and surgical centers.
Yeah, sounds like a comprehensive approach.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, the global shoulder replacement market is expected to hit $472.54 million in 2025, with that impressive 8.6% CAGR, taking us to over $900 million by 2033.
Yeah.
But how is this market currently spread out geographically?
So in 2025, North America is expected to have the biggest market share, over 40% of the global revenue. So that's a market size of $174.84 million for that region.
Okay.
And they're still projecting a CAGR of 7.1% between 2025 and 2033.
This is a pretty big chunk of the global market. What about Europe?
Europe's coming in second. It's over 30% of the global revenue, and their market size in 2025 is estimated at $137.04 million, with a projected CAGR of 7.6% from 2025 to 2033.
Got it. So still strong growth there.
Absolutely.
Now, let's look at the Asia-Pacific region. We hear a lot about rapid growth in various sectors there.
Right, and you're right. APAC holds around 23% of that global revenue in 2025, with a market size of $113.41 million. But here's where the growth really takes off. Their projected CAGR is 11.4%.
Wow.
From 2025 to 2033.
Okay.
It's the fastest growing region by quite a bit, actually. And it's not just about demographics. There are huge investments in healthcare infrastructure and, a rising middle class with better access to these types of procedures.
Right.
So factors that we don't see as much in other emerging regions.
So North America and Europe are the current leaders.
Yeah.
But APAC is catching up.
For sure.
What about the other regions?
Yeah, so South America has a market share of over 5% in 2025.
Okay.
That's about $17.96 million and a projected CAGR of 9.3%.
Okay.
Then we have the Middle East, accounting for around 2% of the global revenue. It's estimated to be $18.90 million in 2025.
Okay.
With a CAGR of 9.9%.
Got it.
And it's interesting, even though their market size is pretty close to South America, their growth is faster.
Yeah.
And lastly, Africa holds about 1% of the global revenue, a market size of $10.40 million in 2025, and a projected CAGR of 8.9%.
Okay, so it's pretty clear. North America, Europe in the lead.
Yeah.
APAC is the one to watch.
Absolutely.
And then we've got, strong potential in the Middle East and South America.
Yeah.
Now, the report also mentioned the fastest growing segment by procedure. What was that again?
Yes, they highlighted reverse shoulder replacement as the fastest growing segment in the whole shoulder replacement industry.
Yeah.
But we'll get into the specific types of procedures a little later.
Okay, so let's dive into those regions, starting with North America. You mentioned a 2025 market size of $174.84 million. How does that break down by country?
So the U.S. is the main player in North America. projected to reach $137.95 million in 2025, with a CAGR of 6.9%. Then you've got Canada, estimated at $20.98 million, with a slightly higher CAGR of 7.9%. And then south of the U.S., Mexico is projected to reach $15.91 million, with a CAGR of 7.6%.
Okay, so U.S. is the big one, but Canada and Mexico are showing good growth too.
Yeah, for sure.
What's driving all this growth in North America?
Well, there are a few things. The report mentions a high number of osteoarthritis and sports-related injuries in the region. Plus, you have access to advanced robotic-assisted surgeries and really good reimbursement policies, which make these treatments more available to patients.
That makes sense, given the types of injuries and the access to healthcare.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift over to Europe now.
Okay.
The total market size there is projected to be about $127.04 million in 2025. Can you give us a rundown of some of the key countries there?
Yeah, so the UK has a projected market size of $23.02 million in 2025, with a really solid CAGR of 8.4%. Germany is actually the largest single market in Europe, estimated to reach $27.13 million with a CAGR of 7.8%. Russia is also pretty significant at $21.24 million with a CAGR of 6.6%. And then you have other important markets like Italy at $11.79 million, 7% CAGR, France at $12.61 million, 6.8% CAGR, and Spain at $11.24 million, 6.7% CAGR. And then there are smaller but consistently growing markets like Sweden, which is at $4.25 million, 7.7% CAGR, Denmark at $2.88 million, 7.4% CAGR, Switzerland at $2.06 million, 7.3% CAGR, and even Luxembourg at $1.64 million with a strong 7.9% CAGR. All the other European countries together represent about $19.19 million, with a CAGR of 6.3%.
So Germany and the UK are leading in size.
Yeah.
But we're seeing healthy growth across Europe.
Absolutely.
Often driven by factors like national healthcare funding, right?
Exactly.
That's a really great overview of the European landscape.
Thanks.
What are the main things driving this growth across the continent?
Well, the report points to a few key drivers. An increasing number of rotator cuff injuries is a big one. Then there's the growing use of 3D printed implants. Then in countries with national health systems like the UK, the government or NHS funding for joint replacement surgeries is playing a crucial role in the market expansion.
It's really fascinating to see how these different healthcare models can influence market growth.
For sure.
Okay, so let's move on to the region with the highest projected growth, Asia Pacific, or APAC.
Right.
We said the 2025 market size is $113.41 million. Where are the major players? And what are the growth rates?
China's the largest market in APAC, with a projected size of $47.63 million in 2025 and a CAGR of 10.9%. Then there's Japan at $15.65 million and a CAGR of 9.9%. South Korea at $13.61 million with a CAGR of 10.5%. And notably, India is showing the fastest growth in the region with a projected market size of $11.34 million in 2025 and a really impressive CAGR of 13.3%. You also have Australia with a market size of $5.90 million and a CAGR of 10.7%.
Got it.
And then smaller but quickly growing markets include Singapore at $2.27 million, 11.7% CAGR, and Taiwan at $4.42 million, 11.2% CAGR. Southeast Asia as a whole is projected to reach $7.49 million with a CAGR of 12.2%, and the remaining APAC countries account for $5.1 million with a CAGR of 11.2%. So that 13.3% CAGR in India is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it really stands out compared to the other regions.
Absolutely.
What do you think's behind this rapid growth? Is it just demographics or are there other things at play?
It's definitely a mix of factors. The aging population is a big driver for sure, and the increase in sports-related injuries. But we're also seeing these big government initiatives aimed at improving healthcare access, and a developing private healthcare sector that's making these procedures more accessible. And we can't forget medical tourism. It's becoming more popular, especially in India, where the costs can be more competitive.
It really does seem like there's a growing demand for healthcare in the region, and the capacity to meet it is also increasing.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's turn to South America. The 2025 market size is $17.96 million. Which countries are the major players there?
So the biggest market in South America is Brazil. It's projected to reach 7.69 million in 2025
Okay.
with a C share of 9.9%. Argentina's next at 3.02 million and a CAGR of 10.2%. And then you have Colombia at 1.60 million.
Got it.
With a CAGR of 9.1%. Peru's estimated at 1.47 million, 9.5% CGR.
Okay.
Chile at 1.29 million, 9.6% CIGR. And all the other South American countries together account for about 2.89 million with a CAGR of 8.4%.
So what's driving this growth in South America?
They have a growing senior population, which obviously leads to more joint problems.
Right.
Also, better insurance coverage is making these procedures more affordable.
Makes sense.
And healthcare spending in general is on the rise. Plus, there are overall improvements in medical infrastructure across the region.
Okay, next we have the Middle East, with a 2025 market size of 18.90 million. How does that break down?
Saudi Arabia is the largest market there. It's projected to be at 6.65 million in 2025 with a CAGR of 10.2%. Then there's the UAE at 3.89 million and a CAGR of 10.4%, and Turkey's at 1.51 million with a CAGR of 10.5%. Qatar is also worth mentioning. It's at 1.51 million with a CAGR of 9.4%. Egypt at 1.13 million with a CAGR of 9.7%. And all the other Middle Eastern countries together account for 4.20 million with a CAGR of 9.1%.
So the Middle East is similar in size to South America, but with a slightly higher overall growth rate.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Does the report say anything about why the Middle East is growing faster?
Yeah, let me see.
Are there specific policies or healthcare initiatives driving that?
They have some similar drivers to other regions, like a large elderly population and a rise in sports injuries.
Yeah.
But the report also points out that there's a higher prevalence of arthritis in the Middle East.
Oh.
And, there are big investments happening in healthcare infrastructure. Plus, medical tourism is growing, especially in Turkey, which is attracting patients from other places.
That makes sense.
So it's a combination of factors.
Okay, and lastly, let's look at Africa, which has a 2025 market size of 10.4 million.
Okay.
What are the key markets there?
South Africa is the largest, projected at 3.66 million in 2025, with a CAGR of 9.8%. Nigeria is estimated at 0.83 million, with a CAGR of 9.1%, and the rest of Africa together account for 5.90 million.
Got it.
With a CAGR of 8.1%.
What's driving the growth in the African market?
The report highlights an increasing elderly population, a higher number of arthritis cases, and better access to healthcare overall.
Okay.
The private healthcare sector in South Africa is also expanding, and there's a growing awareness of orthopedic treatments in Nigeria. These factors are all contributing to the market growth.
Okay, so we've covered the global picture and the regional specifics. Now let's shift gears and talk about how these procedures are evolving and where they're increasingly being performed. The report gives some interesting insights into the types of procedures and the facilities where they're happening. So what does it say about the procedure outlook?
Well, it suggests that total shoulder replacement, or TSR, is going to remain the dominant procedure. This is largely because of the increasing cases of osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and severe joint injuries.
Right. That makes sense, given what we know about arthritis.
Exactly. And the ongoing advancements in surgical techniques like robotic-assisted surgery and minimally invasive methods, as well as the development of better implant materials, are all contributing to TSR's continued popularity.
Okay, but the report also highlighted reverse shoulder replacement as the fastest growing segment.
Right.
Why is RSR increasing so rapidly?
Well, it's proving to be really effective in treating those more complex shoulder problems. Situations like complex fractures or severe arthritis with big rotator cuff tears that can't be repaired.
Oh, I see.
Basically, RSR reverses how the shoulder joint works by switching the ball and socket. This improves stability and function for patients with these tough conditions, where a traditional total shoulder replacement might not work as well.
Interesting.
And the advancements in 3D printing for custom implants and better materials are also playing a role.
So it's leading to better outcomes and wider adoption.
Exactly.
Are there any other procedures mentioned in the report?
Yeah, it briefly mentions partial shoulder replacement, shoulder resurfacing, and revision shoulder arthroplasty. These are options for specific situations.
Right.
But total shoulder replacement and reverse shoulder replacement are really the main drivers of growth in the market.
Okay, now let's talk about where these procedures are mostly happening.
Okay.
What does the end user outlook look like?
Right now, hospitals are doing the majority of these surgeries.
Okay.
They can handle the more complex cases and provide that comprehensive post-operative care.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the increase in shoulder replacement procedures, combined with the advanced technology
Mhm.
in hospitals, keeps them in the lead.
Okay, but the report also mentioned a rapid increase in procedures being done in ambulatory surgical centers,
Right,
or
ASCs.
ASCs. What's driving that?
Well, ASCs are expanding because they're more efficient, often cheaper than hospitals,
Hmm.
and they're increasingly offering minimally invasive options.
Interesting.
We're even seeing outpatient total and reverse shoulder arthroplasty procedures being done in ASCs.
Wow, okay.
Advancements in surgical techniques and pain management are allowing patients to recover faster
Yeah.
and go home the same day. This could mean more convenient and potentially less expensive options for you as a listener in the future.
That's good to know.
Plus, patients often prefer same-day surgery,
Makes sense.
and there's a lower risk of infection in these specialized centers.
Yeah, so it's a move toward outpatient procedures in ASCs,
Absolutely.
which could have big implications for cost and patient experience.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's dive into the bigger picture now.
Okay.
What are the main drivers behind this overall market growth we're seeing?
We've talked about some of them, but to recap, the rising number of arthritis cases across all age groups is huge.
Yeah.
And the constant advancements in minimally invasive surgery, 3D printing for implants, and the development of better materials are all crucial.
Makes sense.
And as we said, the growing use of shoulder arthroplasty and reverse shoulder replacement
Right.
is a big contributor to the growth.
Okay, are there any challenges or obstacles that might be slowing the market down?
Yeah,
Did the report mention any restraints?
it did. The high costs of both the procedures and the implants can be a barrier for some patients. And it also pointed out a potential shortage of skilled surgeons who are specifically trained in these procedures, especially in some regions.
That's a good point. Even with all the technology, we still need skilled surgeons.
Definitely.
What about new trends? Are there any that are expected to shape the future of this market?
Absolutely. We're seeing a clear move towards using robotics and AI in surgery.
Oh, wow.
This is to make surgeries more precise, improve patient outcomes, and potentially shorten recovery times.
Interesting.
There's also a lot of interest in new implant materials, like advanced metals and polymers. These could be more compatible with the body, last longer,
Makes sense.
and reduce the risk of complications. For example, AI is being used before surgery to create personalized surgical plans based on a patient's anatomy.
Okay.
And robotic systems are giving surgeons more control and accuracy during the procedure.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
So what about the companies in this space? What's the competitive landscape like?
The global shoulder replacement market is very competitive.
Okay.
The leading companies are investing heavily in new technologies to differentiate their products. They're also forming partnerships to expand their reach.
Right.
And they're actively seeking international growth opportunities.
Makes sense.
Some of the key players are Johnson & Johnson through DePuy Synthes, Stryker, Zimmer Biomet, Smith Plus Nephew, DJO LLC, Arthrex Inc., Exactech Inc., Conformis, Microport Orthopedics, and Corin.
Got it.
The competition is mainly driven by the need for continuous product innovation, getting regulatory approvals for new devices, and meeting the growing demand for minimally invasive procedures.
I remember the report mentioned specific activities from some of these companies back in August 2021.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What were those again?
Well, for example, Smith Plus Nephew announced that they were presenting their latest advancements in sports medicine at a big industry conference. They were focusing on their arthroscopic enabling technologies. And at the same time, DePuy Synthes, which is part of Johnson & Johnson, launched their enhanced shoulder system, which they claimed was the first fully integrated shoulder arthroplasty system on the market.
That's really interesting.
It just shows how innovative and competitive this industry is.
It sounds like a really dynamic and evolving market with constant innovation and adaptation.
It is. It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways from this look into the global shoulder replacement market?
Okay, so to sum it up, the global shoulder replacement market is set for strong growth over the next decade.
Okay.
This growth is mainly driven by changes in demographics, especially the rising global elderly population, and, of course, the increase in sports injuries. We're also seeing significant advancements in surgical techniques and implant materials that are contributing to this growth.
Makes sense.
It's also really important to note the regional differences in market size and growth rates, with the Asia-Pacific region showing the biggest growth potential.
Yeah.
And finally, the types of procedures are evolving, with reverse shoulder replacement becoming more popular.
Right.
And the places where these procedures are done are changing too, with ASCs becoming a real alternative to hospitals.
It's been a really fascinating look into this market. So for our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture of this complex and ever-changing industry.
I hope so.
Now, considering the big regional differences in growth, especially that high CAGR and APAC, what could this mean for global healthcare access and innovation?
That's a good question.
In this particular area of orthopedics? Yeah. What other questions does this data raise for you about the future of surgery and patient care on a global scale? It definitely gives us a lot to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.